Education in the Philippines is managed and regulated by the Department of Education, commonly referred to as the DepEd in the country. The Department of Education controls the Philippine education system, including the creation and implementation of the curriculum and the utilization of funds allotted by the central government. It also manages the construction of schools, acquisition of books and other school materials, and the recruitment of teachers and staff. Before the Philippines attained independence in 1946, the country's education system was patterned before the systems of Spain and the United States, countries who colonized and governed the country for more than 300 years. However, after the independence, the country's educational system soon changed radically. From 1945 until 2011, the basic education system was composed of 6 years of elementary education starting at the age of 6, and 4 years of high school education starting at the age of 12. Further education was provided by technical or vocational schools, or in higher education institutions such as universities. Although the 1987 Constitution stated that elementary education was compulsory, this was never enforced. In 2011, the country started to transition from its old 10-year basic educational system to a K-12 educational system, as mandated by the Department of Education. The new 12-year system is now compulsory, along with the adoption of new curriculum for all schools. The transition period will end with the 2017-2018 school year, which is the graduation date for the first group of students who entered the new educational system. All public schools in the Philippines must start classes on the date mandated by the Department of Education since the presidency of Joseph Estrada in 1999. And must end after each school completes the mandated 200-day school calendar organized by the Department of Education. Private schools are not obliged to abide by a specific date, but must open classes no later than the last week of August. History. Pre-colonial period. During the pre-colonial period, children were provided with vocational training, but there was no schooling or traditional academics. Training was headed by parents or by tribal tutors or leaders. Stories, songs, poetry and dances were passed from generation to generation, mostly through oral tradition. There was a writing system known as baybayin, and its use was wide and varied. Spanish period. According to some accounts, when the Spanish first arrived in Manila, they were surprised to find a population with a high literacy rate, higher than that of Madrid. Formal education in the Philippines was introduced during the Spanish period. During the early period, this was conducted mostly by religious orders. Friars opened the first schools and universities as early as the 16th century. They also introduced printing presses to produce books in Spanish and Tagalog, sometimes using baybayin. Missionaries studied the local languages and the baybayin writing system to better communicate with the local populations and teach Christianity. The church and the school cooperated to ensure that Christian villages had schools for students to attend. Spanish missionaries established schools immediately after reaching the islands. The Augustinians opened a school in Cebu in 1565. The Franciscans immediately took to the task of improving literacy in 1577, aside from the teaching of new industrial and agricultural techniques. The Jesuits followed in 1581, as well as the Dominicans in 1587, and they started a school in their first mission at Bataan. In 1590, the Universidad de San Ignacio was founded in Manila by the Jesuits, and was incorporated into the University of Santo Tomas College of Medicine and Pharmacy following the suppression of the Jesuits. The first book printed in the Philippines dates back to 1590. It was a Chinese-language version of Doctrinae Christianae, a Spanish and Tagalog version, in both Latin script and the locally used baybayin script, was later printed in 1593. In 1610, Thomas Pinpin, a Filipino printer, writer and publisher, who is sometimes referred as the patriarch of Filipino printing, wrote his famous Librong Pag-aaralan ng Mga Tagalog ng Uwakang Castilla, which was meant to help Filipinos learn the Spanish language. The prologue read, in 1640, the Universidad de San Felipe de Austria was established in Manila. It was the first public university in the Philippines. On April 28, 1611, the University of Santo Tomas was founded in Manila as the Colegio de Nuestra Señora del Santísimo Rosario. By the end of the 16th century, several religious orders had established charity hospitals all over the archipelago and provided the bulk of public services. These hospitals also became the setting for rudimentary scientific research work on pharmacy and medicine. The Jesuits also founded the Colegio de San Jose in 1601 and took over the management in what later became Escuela Municipal in 1859. Escuela Municipal was later renamed to Ateneo Municipal de Manila in 1865, and is known today as Ateneo de Manila University. The Dominicans founded the Colegio de San Juan de Letran in 1620 in Manila. The Educational Decree of 1863 created a free public education system in the Philippines that was run by the government. It was the first such education system in Asia. The decree mandated the establishment of at least one primary school for boys and one for girls in each town under the responsibility of the municipal government, as well as the establishment of a normal school for male teachers under the supervision of the Jesuits. Primary education was free and available to every Filipino, regardless of race or social class. Contrary to what the propaganda of the Spanish-American War tried to depict, they were not religious schools, but schools that were established, supported, and maintained by the Spanish government. In 1866, the total population of the Philippines was 4,411,261. The total number of public schools for boys was 841, and the number of public schools for girls was 833. The total number of children attending those schools was 135,098 for boys, and 95,260 for girls. In 1892, the number of schools had increased to 2,137, of which 1,087 were for boys, and 1,050 for girls. By 1898, enrollment in schools at all levels exceeded 200,000 students. Because of the implementation of public education, a new social class of educated Filipinos arose, the ilustrados. This new, well-educated middle class of Filipinos would later lead the Philippine independence movement, using Spanish as their common language. Among the ilustrados who had also studied in Spain were José Rizal, Graciano López Llarena, Marcelo H. del Pilar, Mariano Ponce, and Antonio Luna, who were later to lead the cause of Filipino self-government and independence. First Republic. The defeat of Spain following the Spanish-American War led to the short-lived independence movement, which established the insurgent First Philippine Republic. The Burgos Institute, the Academia Militar, and the Literary University of the Philippines were established. Article 23 of the Malolos Constitution mandated that public education would be free and obligatory in all schools of the nation under the First Philippine Republic. However, the Philippine-American War hindered its progress. American period. An improved public school system was established during the first decade of American rule upon the recommendation of the Sherman Commission. Free primary instruction that trained people for the duties of citizenship and avocation was enforced by the Taft Commission per instructions of President William McKinley. Chaplains and non-commissioned officers were assigned to teach using English as the medium of instruction. A highly centralized public school system was installed in 1901 by the Philippine Commission and legislated by Act No. 74. Act No. 74 exposed a severe shortage of qualified teachers. As a result, the Philippine Commission authorized the Secretary of Public Instruction to bring more than 1,000 teachers from the United States, who were called the Tomasites, to the Philippines between 1901 to 1902. These teachers were scattered throughout the islands to establish barangay schools. The same law established the Philippine Normal School to train aspiring Filipino teachers. The high school system was supported by provincial governments and included special educational institutions, School of Arts and Trades, an agricultural school, and commerce and marine institutes, which were established in 1902 by the Philippine Commission. In 1908, the Philippine legislature approved Act No. 1870, which created the University of the Philippines. The Reorganization Act of 1916 provided the Philippinization of all department secretaries except the Secretary of Public Instruction. The emergence of high school education in the Philippines, however, did not happen until 1910. It was born out of the rise in big businesses and technological advances in factories and the emergence of electrification, which required skilled workers. In order to meet this new job demand, high schools were created and the curriculum focused on practical job skills that would better prepare students for professional white-collar or skilled blue-collar work. This proved to be beneficial for both the employer and the employee. The investment in human capital caused employees to become more efficient, which lowered costs for the employer, and skilled employees received a higher wage than employees with just primary educational attainment. 2 decades later, enrollment in elementary schools was about 1 million, and about 100,000 in high school. Third Republic in 1947, under Executive Order No. 94, the Department of Instruction was changed to the Department of Education. During this period, the regulation and supervision of public and private schools belonged to the Bureau of Public and Private Schools. Fourth Republic in 1972, the Department of Education became the Department of Education and Culture under Proclamation 1081, which was signed by President Ferdinand Marcos. Following a referendum of all barangays in the Philippines from January 10 to 15, 1973, President Marcos ratified the 1973 Constitution by Proclamation 1102 on January 17, 1973. The 1973 Constitution set out the 3 fundamental aims of education in the Philippines: to foster love of country, teach the duties of citizenship, and develop moral character, self-discipline, and scientific, technological and vocational efficiency. On September 24, 1972, by Presidential Decree No. 1, the Department of Education, Culture and Sports was decentralized with decision-making shared among 13 regional offices. In 1978, by the Presidential Decree No. 1397, the Department of Education and Culture became the Ministry of Education and Culture. The Education Act of 1982 provided for an integrated system of education covering both formal and non-formal education at all levels. Section 29 of the Act sought to upgrade education institutions' standards to achieve quality education through voluntary accreditation for schools, colleges, and universities. Section 16 and Section 17 upgraded the obligations and qualifications required for teachers and administrators. Section 41 provided for government financial assistance to private schools. This act also created the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports. Fifth Republic. A new constitution for the Philippines was ratified on February 2, 1987, and proclaimed in force of February 11. Section 3, Article 14 of the 1987 Constitution contains the 10 fundamental aims of education in the Philippines. It is also seen that under the 1987 Constitution, Article 14, only elementary school was made compulsory. In 1987, the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports became the Department of Education, Culture and Sports under Executive Order No. 117. The structure of DepEd as embodied in the order remained practically unchanged until 1994. On May 26, 1988, the Congress of the Philippines enacted the Republic Act 6655 and the Free Public Secondary Education Act of 1988, which mandated free public secondary education commencing in the school year 1988-1989. On February 3, 1992, the Congress enacted Republic Act 7323, which provided that students aged 15 to the 25th of May be employed during Christmas and summer vacation with a salary not lower than the minimum wage, with 60% of the wage paid by the employer and 40% by the government. The Congressional Commission on Education report of 1991 recommended the division of DepEd into 3 parts. On May 18, 1994, the Congress passed Republic Act 7722, the Higher Education Act of 1994, creating the Commission on Higher Education, which assumed the functions of the Bureau of Higher Education and supervised tertiary degree programs. On August 25, 1994, the Congress passed Republic Act 7796, the Technical Education and Skills Development Act of 1994, creating the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, which absorbed the Bureau of Technical Vocational Education as well as the National Manpower and Youth Council, and began to supervise non-degree technical vocational programs. DepEd retained responsibility for all elementary and secondary education. This threefold division became known as the trifocal system of education in the Philippines. 2000s. In August 2001, Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of Basic Education Act, was passed. This act changed the name of the Department of Education, Culture and Sports to the Department of Education and redefined the role of field offices. The act provided the overall framework for school empowerment by strengthening the leadership roles of headmasters and fostering transparency and local accountability for school administrations. The goal of basic education was to provide the school-age population and young adults with skills, knowledge, and values to become caring, self-reliant, productive, and patriotic citizens. In 2005, the Philippines spent about $138 per pupil compared to $3,728 in Japan, $1,582 in Singapore and $852 in Thailand. In January 2009, the Department of Education signed a Memorandum of Agreement with the United States Agency for International Development to seal $86 million assistance to Philippine education, particularly the access to quality education in the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, and the Western and Central Mindanao regions. 2010s and the K-12 program. The start of the 21st century's second decade saw a major improvement in the Philippine education system. In 2011, the Department of Education started to implement the new K-12 educational system, which also included a new curriculum for all schools nationwide. The K-12 program has a so-called phased implementation, which started in SY 2011-2012. There are 4 phases during the implementation of the new system. These are: Phase 1, laying the foundations. Its goal is to finally implement the universal kindergarten, and the development of the program. Phase 2. Modeling and migration. Its goal is to promote the enactment of the Basic Education Law, to finally start of the phased implementation of the new curriculum for grades 1 to 4 and 7 to 10, and for the modeling of the senior high school. Phase 3. Complete migration. Its goal is to finally implement the grades 11 and 12 or the senior high school, and to signal the end of migration to the new educational system. Phase 4. Completion of the reform. Its goal is to complete the implementation of the K-12 education system. Outline of the new system. In kindergarten, the pupils are mandated to learn the alphabet, numbers, shapes, and colors through games, songs, and dances, but in their mother tongue. Thus after grade 1, every student can read on his/her mother tongue. The 12 original mother tongue languages that have been introduced for the 2012-2013 school are Bahasa, Bicolano, Cebuano, Shabacano, Hiligaynon, Ilocano, Kapampangan, Maguindanao, Maranao, Pangasinense, Tagalog, and Wari. 7 more mother tongue languages have been introduced for the 2013-2014 school year. These are Ibanag, Ivatan, Sambal, Akinon, Canary, Yakan and Surigao. In grade 1, the subject areas of English and Filipino are taught, with a focus on oral fluency. In grade 4, the subject areas of English and Filipino are gradually introduced but now, as languages of instruction. The science and mathematics subjects are now modified to use the spiral progression approach starting as early as grade 1, which means that every lesson will be taught in every grade level, starting with the basic concepts to the more complex concepts of that same lesson until grade 10. The high school from the former system will now be called junior high school, while senior high school will be the 11th and 12th year of the new educational system. It will serve as a specialized upper secondary education. In the senior high school, students may choose a specialization based on aptitude, interests, and school capacity. The choice of career track will define the content of the subjects a student will take in grades 11 and 12. Senior high school subjects fall under either the core curriculum or specific tracks. Core curriculum learning areas include languages, literature, communication, mathematics, philosophy, natural sciences, and social sciences. There are 3 choices that are available to be chosen by the students, or the so-called specific tracks. These are academic, which includes 4 strands which are accountancy, business, and management; humanities, education, and social sciences; science, technology, engineering, and mathematics; general academic, technical vocational livelihood, which specializes in vocational learning. A student can obtain a national certificate level 2, provided she passes the competency-based assessment of the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. This certificate improves employability of graduates in fields like agriculture, electronics, and trade, arts and design, which is helping interested senior high school students in the particular fields of journalism, media, and arts. Sports, which is responsible for educating senior high school students in the fields of sports and health.